Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
And we've just come back from the Mockingbird for the third day in a row, where today we've seen the Shrouds.
Where today we were the only customers seeing the Shrouds.
Yes, as opposed to yesterday where we were in a very full cinema
Yes.
for The Ballad of Wallace Island. Same screening. In fact, might be worth mentioning, because we did just at the end of that last podcast talk about how the sound seemed to be an issue in that film at points. And I felt a similar thing at times here. Hard to hear dialogue or slightly booming. I wonder whether it is the audio balance in that screen might be off a little bit, and I might ask them about it.
Okay, well, I had problems understanding Vincent Cassel at the beginning, but I attributed that to his accent. Otherwise, I didn't have any problems with the sound.
Yeah, it is a little bit mumbly, and so maybe it's a combination. But anyway, this film is written and directed by David Cronenberg. I'm not sure that we've done Cronenberg on the podcast before.
We probably we
think
might
so.
have. Well, I've certainly seen.
Yeah.
Cronenberg's recent.
I don't think I have, and I don't think we've done him on the podcast. But obviously, he's a sort of incredibly prolific Canadian filmmaker. He's 82 now, and this film
That's amazing.
is inspired by the death of his wife some 8 years ago. And it's funny, I didn't know that until looking it up just now. But when you're watching Vincent Cassel in the film, it's very tempting to look at the way he looks and go, yes, he's an avatar of the director. You know? The hair, the look, the suits. He does seem to be playing a version of David Cronenberg to some extent. He is representative in the film to some extent. So this film is about a businessman, played by Vincent Cassel, whose wife died of cancer. His wife was played by Diane Kruger. And in his grief, he develops a technology and a business. So the business is called Grave Tech. The technology is a shroud cam, I think. Basically, bodies, when they're buried, are wrapped in these high-tech shrouds that can create a live 3D impression of the dead body as it's decomposing. So they have a graveyard. The gravestones have screens on them. You access them through the app, and through this app you can interact with this 3D image of the corpse. But it's not your it's not your partner as they were, your loved one as they were. It's as they are now in their currently decomposing state.
The whole film starts with this Jewish belief that people need to be buried, because the souls cling to the bodies and have problems letting go, right? And so kind of that's the concept, I think, that shrouds the whole film.
Indeed. And we're given context that that's kind of built in because the wife's character is Jewish, and that's where that kind of comes in. I mean, we're given this whole opening scene, or close to the opening scene, where Vincent Cassel is on a date, a blind date with someone he's been set up with, and that whole date is there to explain the technology, his business, and that's because obviously she's learning about him as we're learning about him, but also to show that this kind of real life woman with whom he's being paired up cannot hold a candle to the woman, the corpse of the woman who is in the grave, who he's showing her. That he and actually when he's showing her, I mean, that's when she also gets very uncomfortable. But the look on his face and the small gestures with his mouth suggest a kind of sexual thrill to it, or at least or some physicality in the memory of. Because he's always talking about her body. I mean, he clearly loves her. And it's not like he only likes her body, but all the context around his love for her and the kind of memory of her is around the body. I lived in her body. Her body was the world. You've got the same body, so I love her body. And now the body is this corpse that's been decaying for 4 years, but still that kind of activates him.
But her sister has the same body and a better body. Anyway, I thought the whole film was terrible. So I want to get down to the nitty-gritty because it's the second time I've seen it. And it's the second time I've been bored witless by it, really. And, after the first time, of course, friends say, oh, this Cronenberg film is my favorite film of all time, or that Cronenberg film, or whatever. And, so I thought, well, maybe the problem was me. I was just trying to fill time in London. Maybe I didn't go in with the right mood or the right attitude or the right attention. But this is the second time. And I do think the problem is now with me. And actually, that scene that you've just described at the very beginning, where you have like this conversation, and it's basically kind of, one of the supporting characters setting up the whole schema for the film, and it's just tell, dialogue, and these kind of boring, close-ups that never seem to alter. I thought it was like you just want to die, right? And then you realize that so much of the rest of the film is like that, and it's bewildering because like the film has these very potent images as well. So kind of at the very beginning, the film starts with this image of a decomposing corpse, right? And then kind of this transition to, a scream of horror that ends up being him, in the dentist chair. And you think, oh, wonderful, right? And then you get like 10 minutes of expository dialogue. I thought it was like awful.
So I don't hate it as much as you did. And to some extent, I would like a second run at it just because I think... So there are things I don't like about it. There are lots of things I don't like about it. And I do think it's slow and quite boring. And I think it's a psychosexual thriller that is neither psychosexual nor thrilling enough. I mean, I wanted more out of every part of it. It promises psychosexual thrills right from the start. The stuff about him seeming to get excited by the corpse of his wife, as I suggested. Yes. And that opening, which is, once you understand how the shroud technology works, I think that recontextualizes or gives context to that opening that you're seeing from her perspective, from her corpse's perspective, him looking in through the camera. That's what that window is, right? And then, for a long time, you're kind of plodding along with this, the plot about the graveyard having been sort of damaged, desecrated, vandalized, and who did it and why, and has it been targeted. And nothing about it is really moving along. And in fact, this will be a spoiler for that part of the plot. When it got to, when it got to the point, because he enlists Guy Pearce, who is his wife's sister's ex, who is a kind of hacker guy, to investigate this. They don't want to go to the police or anything like that. They want to keep it, don't want publicity and everything. So he gives it to his ex-brother-in-law. And after an hour and a half into the film, because I checked the time, that's when his brother comes back into the story and says, these 9 graves that were attacked, they all of the corpses in them had these sort of nodules appearing on their bones, which is something we've seen right from the start. What are these nodules? What are these? Is it radiation from the shrouds? That sort of thing. It's an hour and a half in before we get any meaningful development in the crime plot. I'm going, how did this take so long to do this? Is that going to be the only thing that happens in the story? It was, and
you're just told that it isn't even dramatized. There's no process in the figuring out, or no tension, or no excitement, or it's just like an hour and a half later you're told what those things are and what they do. So it's a very boringly written crime story. Nothing's really resolved, although I don't necessarily hate that, because what we end up with is an understanding that it's the brother-in-law who has been involved in hacking him, in setting up this AI assistant through which he kind of surveils Vincent Cassel, and that he was involved to whatever extent in desecrating these graves and attacking them. Well, and let me just go, because you see, that has so much story potential. Yeah. Like his brother-in-law, who is ostensibly checking up on you to make sure that you're not fucking his former wife, is nonetheless spying on you in bed. Like, is constantly like aware of what you're doing and what your doings are, and can see you naked, and like, that opens up all kinds of twisty possibilities, none of which are explored in the film. Yeah, and I don't mind various parts left hanging, like some plot points, some detail of the crime wasn't resolved. I don't mind that. I don't really mind kind of ambiguity, but the stuff that I would like it to be filled in with, which is the psychological stuff, is also underwhelming. Like, so for instance, the thing of, actually it kind of relates to the surveillance by the brother-in-law. He's got this, as I mentioned, this AI assistant that he's created and given to Vincent Cassel. And then it's revealed that he puppeteers this AI assistant, and through the AI assistant, through the things that Vincent Cassel tells it, he learns about him and surveils him. And that AI assistant takes a really weird turn late on in the film, where she turns into this image of the Diane Kruger character that we've seen in Vincent Cassel's dreams. He dreams about her repeatedly, and during the course of her cancer,
she would go to the hospital and or like during the kind of experimental treatments, she would lose body parts. She lost a breast, she lost an arm, she has a huge scar down her right shoulder and arm, and we see those appear on her in these dream sequences, and then the AI assistant takes on those disfigurements too. And you're going, right, wow, so is this something that he has talked to the AI assistant about? I mean, it's a business assistant, but he does talk to it like a kind of friend. Is it something that he's imagining now, that, you know, this dream is making its way into reality? I don't know. I don't think it's really resolved. I guess the film is maybe cluing you to say, well, it is real and he has talked to it. But I don't know. It's too accurate. That ambiguity, anyway, is left, and I don't mind that. I like the psychological kind of torment about it. But nothing around this ends up being satisfying enough.
I mean, nothing gets resolved. So the thriller element about the desecration of the graves and the significance of it, and, you know, it potentially being tied to the Chinese and so on. I mean, that's pretty much written off at the end, right? You know, so...
And there's a lot of talk, all that talk about Chinese and the Russian GRU and stuff. It's not only is it a lot of talking, it's also a lot of very quiet, mumbly talking that you really get lost in, and thinking there is such a streamlined version of this thriller plot out there that this is just not. It's not even convoluted. It's just muddly.
Well, some things that are hanging you don't mind, and some things that are hanging you do mind.
Yeah.
Especially when there's so much mumbly talk. I mean, I would have liked to have known what happens to the Guy Pearce character, right? He is kind of the third most important character in the film, right? And, you know, he's poorly introduced, he's poorly utilized, and then he's thrown away. The character makes no sense as a plot device, you know, and yet if you're having all this kind of expository talk, you know, the characters have to be a little bit more than plot devices, really.
Yeah.
So I found that very dissatisfying. I found the casting of Diane Kruger in 3 roles, I guess, yeah, including the Avatar. Yeah, to be interesting, kind of conceptually.
No. We should also mention that so those 3 roles are the former dead wife, her sister,
yes,
who shares her face and body, and that's why Guy Pearce is worried about him sleeping with her, and the Avatar upon whom she's based. Yeah.
But then I didn't understand how at the end of the film, because that's another character then that seems to me is just kind of thrown away, because I didn't understand how at the end of the film he goes off with the woman from Budapest, yeah, and they're planning to live together, and you think,
well, I mean, he's given up on the wife at that point, because by this point he has come to the realization that she was having an affair with this doctor.
I get the wife.
And that the space that he was to take next to her in the grave is occupied. He even implies, I'm not sure that he means it.
No, I get all of that. I get all of that, but that's the wife. That's not the wife's sister. Yeah, he starts a relationship with the wife's sister as well.
Oh, sorry, I see what you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So why not her?
And, well, that just it's thrown away, right?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we see of them is him giving that conspiracy theory, maybe I did it.
Yes.
And her saying, you better fuck me because that was so hot. And
yeah.
That's where it leaves it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought that's bizarre, really. So that, you know, that just seems to be thrown away, you know, and then the lady from Budapest also then seems to come out of nowhere, really. To have that I mean, she doesn't come out of nowhere, but to have that importance at the end, yeah, it seems to me also out of left field. I couldn't quite explain it.
Yeah, because if the physicality of the body is so important to him, and we've seen basically throughout that it is, it's constantly on his mind. Well, the physicality of her body is not something that we've seen him, you know, kind of grow into, that sort of thing. It's always been about Diane Kruger, and therefore Diane Kruger's sister as well, but that's not a relationship that develops. I don't know.
Yeah, well, all of that combined with a shooting style that I think is very typical of Cronenberg, that kind of evokes isolation and alienation and kind of loneliness, right? And, you know, I think it's quite deliberate. So, for example, the scene where he was talking to the Chinese doctor, right? He was filming it in exactly the opposite of what you would imagine. So it's a 2-shot, yeah? Vincent Cassel is on the left and the doctor's on the right, right? And then you would expect when it cuts to a close-up, Vincent Cassel would be on the left, the Chinese doctor would be on the right. And instead, when you have the close-up, you have Vincent Cassel on the right, with all the left being negative space, right? And then the doctor on the left with, yeah. So there seems to be like this juncture, so much empty space. Actually, empty space is one of the characteristics of this movie, right? I mean, this is where I find it like very unsatisfying, because you think there could be like so much more life in the meaning, and of course you think, well, maybe what he wants to evoke is maybe the lack of life, right? So I get that element, but there could still be more things happening, within the frame. I thought it was characteristic that you almost never, in this whole, which seems like quite a decently budgeted film, you rarely see more than two people in a frame.
Yeah,
that's
true.
So it feels kind of empty and thin and at odds, and kind of, I'm sure that there's an intentionality behind that up to a point, right? But it all led to a kind of, a film that seems conceptually maybe rich, but I think dramatically kind of quite thin.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would have liked to have liked it more. I mean, he's an interesting director. He does interesting things. He has such an eye for visual flair and kind of expressive imagery. He has done throughout his career. And here you're going, why is there so little of this? When it got to the point where Vincent Cassel gets into one of the shrouds, and then we see 3D imagery, cropping up on the computer as it detects his body and analyzes him and takes him down to his flesh and his bone. Thinking, wow, this is really interesting. It's so interesting to see him stood up in that, and he's silhouetted. I mean, I love that whole section. I thought, well, his flair, his expression, his him going through something. There's so little of that in the rest of the film. It's so rare. I
didn't even like that, actually. I thought that had so much potential to be more visually expressive, right? But actually, I thought the shroud thing was handled almost nonchalantly. Kind of, just think what a Guillermo del Toro would have done with that shroud, right? Like, he kind of would have put the camera below and, made something meaningful out of the image of this enshrouded man, or, This kind of seems like bitty, really. It's just a man with a thing on him, right? Yeah, occupying one side of the screen, really, while the light source is on the other. I mean, I actually thought that the images weren't that interesting in this film either, right? I mean, there are the odd ones, right? Like,
neither was the sex as good. I mean, I think David Cronenberg films amazing sex in cinema.
Well,
he does. Some of it is, I think about like A History of Violence or Existenz. They had these fantastic, expressive, interesting, weird, and kind of close to explicit sex scenes that I loved. I thought, wow, no one's doing it like this. This is what I want. Here, it was fairly workaday sex scene.
Yes.
Again, the focus wound up on the faces and the heads talking to each other.
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
that was fine.
Kind of. There was a use of Vincent Cassel's body and of Diane Kruger's body, actually. So.
Well, her body's a constant figure of interest throughout the film because we get this repeated dream sequence where he's in bed and she walks in through the door silhouetted, missing a new body part, and or with a new scar. And because I was thinking at points, okay, are these memories? But then you realise, no, they can't possibly be memories. Like, he would have picked her up from the hospital. She's not just going to wander in like this. So it's his kind of memory interpretation in his dream.
Well, again, there's something kind of, to me, there has a lot of interesting potential. And a potential to the lived experience of many people, right? People whose partners have cancer and, begin to lose body parts like that. And, there's still kind of intimacy and longing and all of those things, which kind of, I think is really what the film is meant to be about. But it never quite kind of pulls it through for me.
I sort of was thinking to myself, how would this play were the character roles reversed and were he the one who was losing body parts and eventually then was she the one who was missing him? It'd be really different. It's so important that it's he's male and she's female, because I mean it's about the male gaze to some extent. Like I say, he's all about her body. That's all he ever talks about. That's all he ever remembers and thinks about. And that's all the focus is on her is the missing body parts. It's not talking about how she lost her friends or something like that. It's
very carnal, and there are descriptions of the feel of her left breast, right? It's also kind of tactical.
And then when she comes in, am I still beautiful enough? Or do you still desire me?
Yes.
Having been kind of disfigured by the doctor. And then ultimately, the focus winds up on her corpse. It's her bones and the things on her bones, and that's still what's of interest when she's dead.
Yes. I mean, there's very little about her soul, which is what's meant to be clinging, right?
Yeah.
What ostensibly in relation to the film still lives. Yeah. So, anyway, a very unsatisfying film for me. Yeah, I was bored by it twice.
Yeah, well, I was reasonably bored by it. I think I would be more bored by it the second time, knowing how little it kind of goes where it could be going in exciting and interesting ways.
I must say I'd forgotten most of it by the time I saw it again.
Yeah.
And it's only like, 3 weeks apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks very poorly of my memory, but it also speaks very poorly of the film. If it had been more interesting, I'd remember it.
Yeah. I mean, it reminded me of Blade Runner 2049 in comparison because, particularly, I think because Blade Runner 2049 began with an investigation of a corpse and some unique issue with a corpse, the corpse's body, and it was a thing about like a barcode on there that showed that the corpse was a replicant, and that was a whole thing about replicants, can they reproduce and so on. Because that gets you through that entire film is the story of what is this corpse about, where did this come from, the investigation of it, and it's a constantly interesting investigation that is legible. It takes you down certain garden paths, it closes the door on them, you realise you've been had and misled, and in the meantime it's also telling you about who this person is and how they think and who they are, and shows you their journey of self-discovery and all that kind of thing. And like, this is none of that. It's just like almost goes in those same it could go in those same places. It's almost starting in the same place, and none of the rest of it is competent enough to do that. Like, it's just it points out to me, this is how you do it, and this fails.
And it's interesting because I was looking at Wikipedia before this, and said that according to FilmWire, it ranked 39th in the best films of the 21st century. And it does make you think, what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? Or is it really just hype? Is it that, Cronenberg is now such a figure, that you can't possibly kind of, think that any of his films are crap, And I mean, I think this is kind of an ambitious film in terms of ideas and conceptually, kind of interesting and complex. But to me, the execution is kind of really poor. Yeah, and actually the whole beginning, I thought it was like almost amateurish, right? To kind of, give so much exposition, talk, right? I thought it was like, amateurish, really.
And it was Palme d'Or nominated.
I think it was chosen as a selection for the Palme d'Or to be in competition.
And didn't win the competition.
And I understand why I didn't win the competition. And I understand why it was selected. I mean, who would turn down a David Cronenberg film, really? Well,
you right now.
Well, I would. But I have integrity, darling.
I wish it was better. I wish I'd enjoyed it more. I wish there'd been more to enjoy about it. I mean, I like a psychosexual thriller. I like films that go, fuck yeah, let's have people having sex for weird reasons.
Well, I don't think it's just about that. I mean, the film is also about loss and about mourning.
I know. I'm being flippant, but like, that's I mean, the thing, like, that's something that really rings true from the film. It's just like, it seems like a really weird thing that conspiracy theories turn her on, but like, there are people like that, and it's really great.
Well, I mean, I just thought the whole thing structurally is a mess. I mean, to lose sight of that character, to lose sight of the Guy Pearce character, I mean, yeah, I mean, there are only 4 people in the film, right? So if you just throw away 2, like without offering any explanation, any motivation, nothing.
And actually,
and the third character is peripheral, so it really is just about Vincent Cassel, really.
Well, when they're on the plane at the end, and she turns into the disfigured, or takes on the disfigurements that his wife had, and then the plane flies off into the distance, and I'm going, no, the film can't end here. I need more. I need to know more.
Exactly.
And it just ended. No.
So is it the Avatar, right? Anyway, it's kind of
unsatisfying.
It's unsatisfying, and it's not even interesting enough to speculate upon, right? Like, I think if it were more interesting, you'd ask more of those types of questions and come up with theories. But really, I can't be bothered. I thought it was dull.
No. Well, the things that I think are interesting are those thematic things that I've been trying to talk about. You know, the kind of the idea of the body and the kind of masculine and feminine sort of aspect, the male gaze aspect. That's all there. It's interesting, and there'll be like interesting essays to be written on this film. But none of them will rely on the fact that it had a really, really great structure and a really great plot. You know, yes. It's all thematic.
Well, I mean, sometimes people get onto their own groove, and, you know, if they're interested, you know, in the male gaze, then kind of almost any film will do, really. Like, you know, if it's a new film and it's by an interesting director, the film needn't be any good. Yeah, but, you know, I'm kind of concerned with that. I mean, the film doesn't play, it doesn't cohere, it doesn't really teach you anything, and as an experience, I found it almost supremely dull. Yeah. Really, like you really had to struggle to kind of continue paying attention.
Yeah.
Which I felt it didn't earn and it didn't deserve.
No. Fair enough. Not good enough, unfortunately.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.